During the election, I had moved to a new postdoc at Yale, and this fake news problem came out that people were falling for completely fabricated content online. I mean, the thing you have to understand about the election is that something would have to have a huge impact to actually sway the election. There was a lot of things that happened during the election that did not sway it, and so false content might not have had that big of an influence. Certainly people were believing things that were false. As a psychologist, that is sufficient for me. That's just never a good thing. We define fake news as something that has been entirely fabricated, but that is presented as if it's a legitimate news story. And so it's not just false or misleading, it's completely wrong. For example, the Pope endorsed Donald Trump. Somebody just created a website that looks kind of like a news website, but of course is not. And they just made up that claim, published the story, and then that got spread on social media. And so that's a fake news headline. Why do people fall for it? And who are the people who are falling for it? And how does it spread? The underlying claim that a lot of people make is that the reason that it's spreading is mostly because of politics. That, people are partisan hacks and they kind of engage in this rationalization process when they see something that they want to believe. So if you are a Catholic Republican and this is, the days before the election, and you see a fake news story that says the Pope endorsed Donald Trump, you really want that to be true, and you kind of use your reasoning to convince yourself that that's true. You actually kind of delude yourself, which is why it's such an intractable problem. That's the idea. But we think it's something different, and most of our evidence suggests that it is something different. The problem is that social media is not conducive to critical thinking. The basic thing that we do in a lot of our studies is we give people actual content from the world. So I've gone and found actual fake news headlines and actual, of course, mainstream true content from New York Times, Washington Post. And then we present them to people in the same way that they would look if they were on Facebook. And then we ask people to make judgments on them. Do you think this is true or false? Do you think this is accurate? Would you share this on social media? And what we find is that people who tend to be more effective, that is, people who are more likely to override their intuitions and think in a more kind of logical way, those people tend to be less likely to believe fake news, and they're more likely to believe actual true content. And it doesn't matter if it's consistent or inconsistent with their political ideology. If you force people to give intuitive responses that they aren't permitted to really think that much about, it makes people worse at recognizing false content. I think that people fall for fake news largely because they aren't thinking enough about what they see on social media. And so one of the things that we can do, and that's we as in each of us, is to start thinking more critically about the things that we see on social media, which of course everybody might say that as a solution, but it actually might work. We've done studies on this. And so what you find is basically regular lay people are good at recognizing which sources are good and which ones are false. They rank them almost identical to actual professional fact checkers. It's just that they don't actively do that when they're looking at news content when they're going through their feed. And so we want social media companies to try to do something that gets people to think about accuracy more, to change the way that people engage with social media, just to kind of get people out of that lazy thinking mode. And so, our hope for the future obviously is that the companies listen to us, that we can actually do something that has an impact. People always say this in research, where they say, understanding the underlying science will help us do something that will help the world. They usually spend all their time on the first part and not on the second part. In this case, I've gotten to do that, where there actually is a straight line between understanding why people fall for fake news and what you can do to help remediate the problem. My name is Gordon Pennycook. I'm an assistant professor of behavioral science at the Hill Levine Schools of Business at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan, Canada.